Hi, I'm Robyn. I'm the owner of the small business called Red Berry, and I'm going to be taking you through step by step how you can make one of these mushroom tea light holders at home with just a few objects you have lying around the house. So I'm going to take you through what you need. First of all, obviously you're going to need some clay. This is Das air drying clay in terracotta, but it really doesn't matter what clay you use as long as it's air drying, unless you've got kiln. And this is about 300 grams. It's rough measurements, but this is the size that it makes. You can scale it up if you want to. Then you're going to need some water. This will stop your clay from drying. If you feel it getting dry throughout the making process, just add a bit of water, massage it in, and you'll be good to go. Then you're going to need some sharp pointed objects. I like to use scissors, it doesn't matter. You'll see why during the video. And then you're also going to need 2 pens. This is optional. I use the lids to mark out the dots on top of the mushroom, but you can do it freehand if you want to, but I just use 2 different size lids. It just helps keep it looking neat. And then you're going to need a tea light without the tea light inside it, so just this, and this is the cutter to cut out the place where the tea light will sit eventually. So let's get started. Just before you start, you need to make sure your clay is workable. So sometimes when it comes straight out the packet, it can be quite stiff. So you're just going to want to massage it for a bit. Make sure it's a good consistency to work with. Get any air bubbles out as well, because you don't want them in there. So the mushroom is in 2 parts. This is what it looks like without the paint on it. So we're going to make this part of it first. This is about 1/3 of the clay, so roughly about 100 grams. I just use the scissors to cut about 1/3, but you can rip it off with your hand, it's fine. Just check it for size. If you think it needs a bit more, add a bit more if you need to. I might make this one a bigger stemmed one actually. And then you're just going to want to get it into a ball, first of all, because it's quite a nice shape to start off with. So once it's in a rough ball, then you want to try and elongate that shape to make this kind of stem. So I'll leave that there as a guideline, but that's kind of what I'm working with. And you just want to roll it and kind of taper in one side, kind of like this. And then a really important step is you want to make sure that the bottom is flat, and to do that, all you need to do is just do that, and then that should be relatively flat. This is quite important because obviously you don't want it to fall over when it's got tea light in it. So now you've got this basic shape, you can just go around and smooth any edges. Add your water if you need to. Just smooth any creases down, any joins in the clay. But because it's a mushroom, it doesn't really matter and you're going to paint it anyway, but I like to just make sure that it's quite smooth. And then what you're going to want to do is pinch this top section, just all the way around, pinch it. There's no specific technique to this, and this is to create a flat base for us to then put the mushroom top on top of. Sometimes it de-shapes itself, so you might just want to go back in with your hands and just make sure that it stays the right shape. But yeah, make sure that this top bit's flat and you end up with something that looks a bit like this. You're then going to want to get your sharp object, and you just want to scratch small indentations on the top, because this will then help it stick to the top part of the mushroom once we've formed that one later on. If you feel like it's getting a bit dry, dip some water on top and just set that one aside for a minute while we get on with the top part. Now what you're going to want to do is take your other piece of clay, after you've set this mushroom bottom to the side, roll it into a rough ball, and you want to smack it onto the table just a couple of times to get this smooth base. Flatten it with your hand in a kind of rolling motion, and then once it's looking round, you just want to get your thumb in and press all the way down on the edges to get this mushroom top shape, just like this. And if you want a smoother shape without texture, just go ahead and dip in your water smooth it all out. I quite like to give them some texture, it makes them look a bit more natural. But if you're going for a look where it's quite smooth, then I suggest just smoothing it with water. So you'll end up with a shape that looks like this. Now you're going to want to get your case for your tea light. You can use the small ones, but I just like to use the larger ones. And find where you would like to make your indentation. Some people like it in the centre. I tend to do mine off centre. And you're just going to want to slowly press it down, not too far that it goes through all the clay. Lift up and twist. And you end up with something that looks like this. Don't worry if it misshapes a bit, because you can always edit that at the end. But next you're going to want to cut across the circle one way like this, and across again the other way, and this just helps you because you're going to want to lift this out. I like to take my scissors again and just gently take each quarter that you've cut out like that. So 2 more to do. Don't worry if you leave it behind, because you can always go back in with your scissors, or you can smooth it down. The hole doesn't really need to be that deep, as long as it's a bed for a tea light, that's fine. So just get all of the stuff out from the centre, and then this is where you're going to want to just shape and make sure it is as rounded as possible. Use your water if you want, keep shaping it. It's really kind of like a bit of an iterative process, so that's the beauty of clay. If you make a mistake, you can just go in again with more clay or just some water, smooth it down and reshape it. What you can also do is you can also get this and just stick it in there for a guideline and push into the edge, and that way you know that the candle is going to fit nice and snugly. Then what you're going to want to do is lift it up off of your surface, turn it over and create these markings in the centre. So just rough it up a little bit, and this is where we're going to add our stem. Bit of water, stem, and place your mushroom top on there. Find a place, it doesn't need to be central, it can be off centre, it doesn't matter. And just with your thumb, gently push down all the way around. I find it easier to use the nail side of my finger, because that way you can smooth it down easier and it doesn't slide off. Don't worry if this looks rough, because the underside of mushrooms are textured anyway, so it can actually look quite effective. Just slowly going around the edge, and you'll end up with something that looks like this. Okay, again, if you want it a little bit neater, just go in with your water, smooth down with your pointing finger and your thumb. You can keep that tea light case back in there just to make sure that the shape's okay. And now for the fun bit, is where I use my 2 pens. So I want to go in with the bigger one first, and I like having them quite evenly spaced, but it's nice to have some random in there as well. And I just stamp holes in, just press gently, it's only a guideline for when you go to paint it later. Twisting, stamping. It's nice to do some off centre as well, like this. And also in the tea light bed, because sometimes if the tea light's not in there, you still want it to look like a mushroom. So that's how I like doing mine. Again, it's completely up to you. But then I go in with my smaller one and I just create smaller details like this, just gently stamping down until you're happy with how many are in there. and you end up with something that looks like these two. This is what it'll look like when it's dry. The clay goes lighter and it's, you know, lighter in weight as well. Set this one to the side. Takes, I'd say, about a day to completely dry, maybe a bit more. You can leave it in a warmer place and it will speed up the process, but I like to just leave them to avoid any cracking. So this is what it should look like once it's dry, and then it should be ready to paint. And what I do is I go over the whole thing with just white acrylic paint, and then I do the red around the edges, and then I like to go in with a white paint pen, but it's really simple to just get a small dotting tool like the end of a chopstick or a tiny paintbrush as well. So that's how you make your tea light holder shaped like a mushroom. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy all the other activities at the festival.